Hi and welcome back to the garden. In this video I'm going to be looking at some of the plants that we've grown from seed and just showing you where we're up to with their development. So we've got quite an array of different plants on this table, and I'm going to take you back to last year where we found this really beautiful white and burgundy coloured Aquilegia, and if you can remember, we took some seeds of that, I think it was last July, and the seeds have been happily growing away and they've turned into lovely plants. And I'm at the point now where they're just in these little module trays, and this is how far we've managed to get them. So they didn't germinate until this spring, and I think maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago I pricked some of them out, and this is where they're up to now. So they're going to make beautiful little plants. They've not quite filled their whole modules yet, so they've still got a lot of growing to do in these little plugs. So they're okay, they can be left alone for a bit longer, and when they get to the point where they've filled these containers, I can see the roots because these are see-through, we'll then get them on into their individual containers. So that's those. So just remaining with the Aquilegias, also during last year, I think it might have been July as well, we also sown the collected seed from the Nora Barlow series that was called Black Barlow, so Aquilegia Black Barlow, and these again didn't germinate until the following spring, so this spring, and now they're up to a point now where we've just got them pricked out into their individual containers and they're doing nicely, so they'll be able to hopefully go into the garden, if not later in the year then maybe in the spring. And then also last year, so I think it might have been November last year, we sown some Primula Veris, and as you can see they've done really well. So we've got, I think there's two trays the same kind of size, and that is where they're up to. Now they're looking like they are virtually coming to the point where they're going to need potting on, but at the moment they've turned into some beautiful plants, nice and well grown, very healthy, so they're doing really well. And then during that same month we also sown some Eryngium planum, so it is the sea holly, and we had really good success with these as well. So these are where they're up to. They've grown quite big plants. Now we did try and plant some of these in the garden about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and because these leaves are quite fine, they're not like the usual Eryngium leaves where they're quite spiny and prickly. These are quite soft, and it did mean that the slugs were captivated by them, and unfortunately we put 3 in the border and all 3 of them had the middles taken out. Now I've got 2 of them here. Now we did manage to dig them back out of the border, and all 3 of them have survived, and these are actually the 3 that we did, so these are 2 of the 3, and as you can see they have already started to regrow again. So I'm going to wait till these get a hell of a lot bigger before these go out into the open ground, because I already know that the slugs are going to be waiting for the moment I put them in to have a feast, so I'm going to leave them to it for the time being. And then moving on to some of this year's seed sowings. In the spring we sown the Digitalis Excelsior mix, and I think Andrew did a video about that, and this is where we're up to with these. So these literally are in really nice size now, and at any point now they could be planted into the garden. They're already in the nice little plugs, and if I just show you some of the development, so they're basically ready for planting in the garden. So once the foxgloves that we have finally gone over and we've collected any seed we want from them, we'll be putting these in and they'll be going in. Now we made the mistake last year of just leaving these into individual pots, and we left them over the other side of the garden, and unfortunately the squirrels were digging around. A lot of them got damaged, so we didn't have any at all to plant this spring. So I've learnt my lesson. I'm going to make sure that any foxgloves we do have, or any major plants that need going in the autumn, actually do get planted, because I don't want to have a repeat experience of coming in the spring and realising all our hard work has been dug up and destroyed. So they're going to be going out anytime now up until the autumnish time. So also in the spring we also sown verbena And this one, it is, you can see the flower on this one, it's beautiful. Beautiful verbena flower head. And this one is a variety called Purple Elegance. So it doesn't grow as tall as the Verbena bonariensis. And these are actually ready to go in the garden. So these are going to be planted. I'll take you in a moment where they're going to be planted, but they're doing really well. We've also got the Amimagus. So these were sown in May. And these are just a few of the plants we've got. That's probably the largest one so far. So these are doing really well. Some of the smaller plants that we did grow did get eaten by slugs, but we did manage to get maybe about 5 or 6 that we managed to save. So they're doing really well. And we also have the Calendula, which is the Indian Prince, also sown in May. And these now have got their first little buds on. First flower buds just coming up there. So again, we've waited to get them to a good size before they do go out in the garden. We have planted some of these already into a container, and some of these other ones that we do have left are going to be planted in a container as well. But I'll take you to their final place in a little moment. And then the last thing I want to show you is the Erigeron Karvinskianus. So these are the seedlings. So these were sown again in May. And as you can see, these are growing into nice little plants. They're ready now for pricking out. Because there's been so much to do. I mean, June, July is a very, very busy month of pricking out, sowing seeds, potting on, and it is easy to get behind. And it's done no harm. The plants aren't suffering as a consequence of this. It's just a case of having to do it as and when you need to do it. And sometimes you don't always get that time in the garden. So there's tons of other jobs that need your attention that take priority over some of the other jobs that are just kind of in the background. So one other thing I want to talk to you about is a way that I kind of manage all the things that I'm growing, and that is by using a kind of like a seed sowing diary. And what I've got here is just an example of what I use. So it is just written down in paper, and it's my seed sowing chart. So I write down the date that things are sown, I write down what plant it is, when it was pricked out, if it was, when it was potted on, if it was, when it gets planted out, if it's a vegetable, when it was harvest, or is it harvest, and then the verdict. So that's my opinion of if I've grown a new seed that I've never grown before, what was the performance like? Was it tasty if it was a vegetable? Did it grow well? Was it slow to germinate? All the things like that I put in the verdict there. And then any notes, so anything that I might want to put down, whether germination was slow or whether something was slug prone. So that's just something that I do. And I've been doing a chart like this for many, many years, back in our Sheffield days. And this also includes all of our sowings for our vegetables as well. And as you can see behind me, there is an array of lots and lots of plants, including lots of vegetables that are on these shelves behind me. So this is really focusing upon the actual flowers that we've sown. So this is a way that I manage all of our sowings. So I know, has something been pricked out, has something been potted on, and I can just clearly see if it has. And what I've recently done on the subsequent pages is just add another column just to say if something's germinated or not, because I do know sometimes things are slow to germinate, and I can see just by looking at my list of ticks, if there's one missing, I can look back and think, oh, that's not done yet, I wonder why, and I can then work out the reason for that. Sometimes things do take a long time to germinate, and that is just a case of having to be patient. So you could do it on paper, but you could also do it on your computer. So you can have a digital copy of this, which looks something similar to this on an Excel spreadsheet, for example, and you can just make a list, and as you're doing things, you can type it in. And if you find that better for yourselves, then that's great. I personally find this easy because I can take this with me into the garden, and I can just jot things down as and when I'm doing them, rather than trying to remember when I go back indoors. So that's my sowing seed chart. So there's 2 of these plants which are destined for somewhere over there near the decking. So I'm going to grab these 2 and we'll go over there and I'll show you where they're going. Okay, so the verbena, and this is like I've just said, this is Purple Elegance, is going to be planted in among some of these plants over this side of the garden. And the Indian Prince calendula I'm going to put into these 2 pots. So basically these used to have some buxus plants in them, and I've just noticed over the past few months that they wasn't looking great. I think they were coming to a point where they might have been getting some kind of box blight or something. So I'm trying to save myself a lot of heartache by getting rid of them now before they grow into the big domes and then they end up getting susceptible to that kind of problem. So I've decided, although I do like the box bars that I was going to clip out of them, I've decided let's bring some more colour. And there's nothing more colourful than calendulas, that bright orange, so that'll brighten up this whole area. And also going with some of these hot colours of like the heleniums and the crocosmias we have on this side, and some of the other things we've got on this side as well, which are also nice and colourful, like the Warburton's Fragrant Sunshine at the very end, and the echinaceas, which are doing really, really well. So these 2 are Magnus, and if you can remember back to the spring, they were bare root plants, and I did a little video about how to get the best out of bare root plants. So they're 2 of the Magnus plants, and we also have the white swan, which has been planted in the border where the new tree is going as well. So they're in the garden now, so just have to keep an eye on them because slugs do like echinaceas. But luckily they've left the ones in the pot alone. In the garden they have managed to nobble one of them, but I've just put like a plastic bottle around the foliage, and that does seem to have helped, so fingers crossed that'll be okay. And the other one's got a flower bud on, so fingers crossed we'll be fine with those. So calendulas are going to be planted in these pots over this side and on this side, and the verbena is going to go in this beautiful border to my right. The only real failure we have, and it's not technically a failure, is the Primula bulliana seeds we sown. And we sown them in September last year according to my label. And these were from the Primula bulliana, which is over on this side here. And just looking at them, there's just a few now starting to germinate. Now I did sow quite a lot of seed, and I would have expected germination in the spring, because if you remember, these ones needed that cold snap, and we certainly got a cold snap over the winter. We got -13, so you can't say they had any problems in having a really, really good cold snap. Then when the spring came, I expected to see lots and lots of germination, but unfortunately that's not happened. We've just got a few just popping up now at the moment, but that's fine, they'll be fine. I'll leave them in there a bit longer, and once them get big enough, we'll then start pricking these out. Hopefully there might be a bit more germination as well in the meantime, but who knows. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly about 7 or 8 plants in there. That's more than adequate for our garden anyway, so I'm happy with that. So with regards to the purple elegance, I'm just going to pop these in, and I'm just going to pop them in at random. So in the previous video you've probably seen the devastation of the sunflowers that Andrew sown. He did have these mingling around in this area, but what I might do is just put a few, obviously I'll plant them, I'm just going to put a few mingled around in this border, just towards the back, in any gaps that I might have. So just round like that, a few like that, and then another one towards the back, kind of there. And the thing about verbena is, because of our winters, it's touch and go whether they survive. So I kind of think and grow them a bit like an annual. So I expect them to be brilliant for 1 year and flower the heads off, bring lots of beneficial insects to the garden, because these lovely flowers are perfect for lots and lots of different types of wildlife, including butterflies. So I expect them to flower away, do what they do, bring the bees, and if they don't survive the winter, then that's fair enough. If they do, then that's a bonus. So I'm not going to worry too much about leaving a lot of space for these, because I don't really expect them to survive. But if they do, it's a bonus. So I'm going to get some more of those and just plant them around this border, because that'll bring a lovely touch of this lovely purple and some more height to mingle with these other plants. So that's all I've got to show you for now on the plants we've grown from seed through this year and some of last year. I hope you found it informative, and if you've been following the journey, I do hope you found that you can kind of tie some of these things together that we've been doing. Like I've said, the only real kind of major failure or mini failure is the Primula Bulliana, but as you can see, there are lots and lots of seeds that are going to be produced this year, and what I might even try and do is do at some point sowings of the green seed, because that can be sown straight away and it will germinate this year. So what I might do is do that on another video, so I'll show you that, so please do keep posted, and we'll get into how to grow Primula Bulliana or some of the other primulas using the green seeds. So until the next video, please do take care, and we will see you very, very soon.